the Court of Appeal or what's happened afterwards, that nothing really changed after DCA ban.
Yep. It's going to be ages.
But we did get a response back. That's a big problem for the regulator as well as the industry. Review of Consumer Duty board reports.
Well, is it a complaint about the actual finance? Is it a complaint about the car? What is it a complaint about? You know,
but took it seriously. This is Jon.
And this is Nick.
And this is How It Is.
What's been happening in compliance this week?
Not a lot, but a couple of big things.
Not a lot, but that kind of makes no sense.
Well, so there's not been like loads of news. It feels like this year everything's come thick and fast, but I think there's been two updates rather than anything new. I think the first one's been the Court of Appeal or what's happened afterwards. We'll get into that in a minute.
Yep.
And the other one's been the FCA's review of Consumer Duty board reports. Well, let's do the Court of Appeal. So what's happened?
It's gone to the Supreme Court have said that they are willing to, I don't know how
they will hear it.
They will cure it. There you go. So.
Yeah, interesting. So, of course, Close announced it on their case. Before that, though, of course, the FCA had sent, it might have been the week before, sent a letter in support of it. What I found really interesting in that letter was that the FCA said, we published updated guidance or rules on commission disclosure in 2021, following obviously the DCA ban. And I feel like that was in there to say to the Supreme Court, if they hear it, you're going to embarrass us and undermine us if you don't hear this or take that point on board. Because I think for a regulator to put out updated rules or guidance, and then for the courts to find in common law that doesn't stand up, that's a big problem for the regulator as well as the industry.
What do you think, when we're talking about the commission disclosure, what do you think of the FCA emailing every limited permission application that we have going at the moment, those customers, and saying, have you heard about it? What's your angle on it?
Well, I think the first answer is attempting to go, well, have you heard about it? Obviously, they've said a lot more since. But we did get a response back, didn't we? Well, a firm had chased and they said, we're collating answers, which to me says they don't know or they're going to be pending outcomes, but they can't sit on this forever. So I think there's still a lot of unknown from the FCA on how this is going to fall. I think everyone's got an opinion on what the Supreme Court, will agree with, won't agree with.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of waiting time, I guess.
It's going to be ages, isn't it, until they get into the Supreme Court?
I've heard some people say it's going to be April, May. Some people say start Q2. I think previously,
that's a lot quicker than I thought it would.
Yeah, some people said it might be end of 25, start 26, but I think it is going to be a bit quicker.
I don't understand how it takes so blinking long. How does it take so long to get?
There's obviously the period of compiling, evidence and cases and stuff, but there can't be anything more important that I can think of that the Supreme Court could hear in the meantime, because this affects at least all of the motor finance industry, which is huge, but it probably also it will also affect then any other area really where there's a secondary person involved in a buying process, and I don't even mean in financial services, to be honest.
It's going to make the PPI claims kind of thing, it's going to dwarf it, in my opinion, if the decision is against the market rate.
Well, the decision will not get completely overturned, I don't believe. I think there's a chance that people don't get found as a fiduciary. I think there's a good chance of that. But I'll say what I've said for the last couple of years, which is that nothing really changed after DCA ban.
Yep.
Ultimately, if you've got a stocking loan and you're told you have to pretty much use the incumbent lender, or you've chosen your rate so that you get a bigger commission, but it's not, because of extra work done in the process. There are many other reasons why realistically it did affect the amount the customer pays. Mm-hmm. And I think the FCA must have known that Lenders must have known it. Large groups, especially who had quite high APRs at main dealers, knew it. So there's going to be some comeback.
Yeah, definitely. So, what was the second part?
Consumer Duty board reports. So the FCA, obviously, the board reports had to be in July, and they've done a review. I can't remember how many firms they looked at, but it wasn't a big number.
No.
I always think it's hard to get a good cross section if you don't use a huge number. I mean, it was like double digit. I've got a feeling it was like 20 or something. It might have been 60, but it wasn't like hundreds and hundreds of board reports. Obviously, it's multi-sector, so it's hard to bring it down to our sector. But, the main areas were vulnerable customers, obviously. Although, interestingly, they didn't use the words vulnerable customers directly. It was customers with characteristics of vulnerability or people in vulnerable circumstances, which is an improvement because I think we do need to reframe people's views on that. And that also linked to customer support. One thing they banged on about or mentioned was analysis of complaints data. And I always think that's a bit of a strange way to look at it, because if you get a complaint, you've either done something wrong or the customer feels like something's gone wrong. So while it's important to look at that, I think you shouldn't be looking retrospectively.
And how people define a complaint as well. And again, within the motor trade, it's, well, is it a complaint about the actual finance? Is it a complaint about the car? What is it a complaint about? That's how they see it. So trying to get that across.
But of course, in Consumer Duty, it's anything. Whether even it's unregulated, if you're a regulated business, it's anything that goes on within the business. And like you say, it can be reviews, which people miss sometimes. Any expression of dissatisfaction. So that was interesting. I think the focus there, price and value as well, that probably doesn't affect car dealers quite as much. But when we had all the Consumer Duty price and value assessments like over a year ago, they were all pretty much the same. And it was always pretty much, this is what we do and therefore this is the value. And I think there does need to be some work on how the customers see the value and performance of the book afterwards for lenders, rather than just pricing against the market. So there's some work to do there.
Interesting. Only time will tell what happens. We'll have to kind of delay the next segment until maybe the Supreme Court hearing. I don't know.
I mean, I think there's also some stuff more specifically on board reports that I think affect the people we deal with quite a lot. So brokers and car dealers, is digital journeys was one thing that's mentioned in credit. So making sure that digital journeys give the right explanations. We've said it a few times, really, that digital journeys have been there to speed up the process. But can you have the same explanation as a good salesperson or a good advisor sat down when it's in a digital journey? So I think it's really important that those things can happen. And the real thing that I picked up was support for smaller firms. The FCA almost acknowledged that smaller firms won't have the resources to do as much detail, but they said use skilled third parties. I would consider ourselves that, obviously. We did some really good work in Consumer Duty, especially with brokers, because I think they were the size of realizing some of them couldn't do it themselves, but took it seriously. And some of the insight we have, because we see so many firms, we've got some good ideas on what can be done. And I think people don't have to realize that we can do those reviews, we can give insight, we can give systems, we can do a process, and really help people to do better work on Consumer Duty.
I do think the FCA will be wanting to see that data, though, which has been collated since the inception of Consumer Duty and after Consumer Duty board reports. When they're going to do that, I don't know. You got the consumer credit reporting changes, which they want the collating of that information in 1st of January. Christ almighty.
Well, data to be collected for the start of the first reporting period in
26.
25.
But then it's, so we collected in 25. But then you don't want to see 26. It 26. Yeah, exactly. So that is going to be a big change.
And, in the motor finance industry, that's been lost.
Absolutely.
Amongst SAF.
Yeah.
Because there's been this, the FLA have then said, SAF's got to be done by anyone dealing with a a FLA member lender, and there's been a big focus on that. But that the consumer credit report and the data's been lost, but you've still got lenders, not providing data. So, for instance, within that report, we think they need NTU data, not taking up data. That's not really getting passed down.
Absolutely.
Amongst other things, number of settlements, total value of settlements on vehicles, and that data not being available. I think the FCA just assume that all that data is available across companies, and it just isn't.
Yeah, but then they go back and they realise that, like, an independent car dealer don't have the resource for it. But then they want all this huge amount of data from them.
Yeah, it's going to be a problem.
Absolutely, it's going to be a problem for another day at the moment.
But SAF, the other things with SAF coming along, I've got to be honest, it's been a bit of a shambles.
Yes.
There's been no centralised system to collect the data, and I spend a lot of time on the car dealer forums and stuff. Where we've always given advice and stuff, and the truth is, most people are going, "I'll get my rep to do it. I'll use ChatGPT or Google to Google the answers. I'm not doing that. Israel can get away with it." People aren't, even if they're getting the test done, they're not learning anything.
Absolutely.
So what is the point in setting a standard where you're almost going, look how good our industry is because they've all done the SAF test, and the truth is no one's actually learned anything.
Yeah, and the other thing is as well, so the lenders are saying, right, we need to see the SAF certificate. So that dealership could have 3 salespeople or 3 people who need to be SAF authorized to get the certificate. Yeah, they get that on the Monday morning, let's say. On the Tuesday, you could sack 2 people, 2 new people come in, and it means nothing, but then that's okay for another year.
Or self-declare that you've only got 3 staff and you've really got 7.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like it's just that's probably right. There's no actual certification for individuals.
Absolutely ridiculous.
I just think like what needs to happen is the education, relevant education, needs to be there. And I understand cars is like, well, why do I need to know the structure of a credit hire agreement? I'm never going to do one. Or HP with balloon. I've never done one. Like, there should be more about compliance, but process of compliance. Like, like this is the correct way of doing this. Like, and I think people would more engage with that. It's, it needs to really show our industry in a better light.
I'm going to ask you a question. You did the SAF not so long ago.
No, it was January, actually.
Was it?
Mine will be due again in January.
Okay, all right. At that point, in January, consumer duty was the big topic at the time. How many consumer duty questions were in your SAF exam?
1.
Wow.
Do you know what the question was?
Go on.
What is Principle 12?
I can give you the answer. I can give you the answer. The longest.
The one with the most text in the answer. Yeah. And you look at that and you go, 1 question for all of consumer duty, but how many questions were on product types? Well, the product type's written down on the pre-contract information, or you can get it from the product provider. I just think it's not really doing the best job of
I totally agree.
Of upholding standards.
I totally agree. Hope you enjoyed that. Remember to like and subscribe. Until next week.
And comment on...
comment.
Comment what else has been going. What else has been going on, or what you think about what's been going on that we spoke about.
Okay. Until next week.